Your mind. Your mind is an incantation box. Your mind is a space that you can create what you put into. You choose what you put into on a day to day basis, and that is what creates into your reality. Your mind is a space by which you get to determine what goes in and what goes out, and so on and so forth. And with that, you work with the universe. You work with the collective conscious, the understanding of the world, of the universe that is energetic. It's something that science is just now discovering more so the past 5, 10 years, but something that's been talked about for over 100 years now by various different thinkers. Neville Goddard, Napoleon Hill, several others. If you really look into this work and begin to study it more and more and apply it to your life, might I add, you will really continue to develop your understanding of how we work with the universe. And again, many things just come natural. Many things seem natural once you learn them, like the basics of them, right? Because as I'm learning and understanding it all and beginning to understand it all, even though it's been 3 or 4 years that I've been studying it, I see it play out in others' lives. I see it play out with people that I know, people that I used to be in relationships with. I mean, like, work relationships or whatever. And you see how these very things determine their lives, how they determine their own life, I should say. How they work with the universe unknowingly to create their reality, how their perception creates their reality continuously, even though it's negative, even though it's a negative remembrance or understanding or way of being that they choose to continue to operate within. That's what they continue to recreate. I used to work with a guy who, deep down, he was a good guy. You could tell he had a good heart. But his habits and his mental ways of thinking, his patterns, they would always come to bite him in the ass. He had a lot of anger. He had a lot of day to day. He had a lot of anger throughout the day, like all the time. Whether it was with a worker or with another coworker, with a client, with something on his phone, and various different things. And again, great deep down, he had good intention, and he would show that time and time again. But his anger would continue to manifest in his own life. His anger would continue to manifest in situations that he didn't want to be in. Like if you were to ask him, he'd tell you how much he hated those situations. But if you stood back and watched, such as I did, you'd watch him create those. And in reflection now, you know that he was just simply creating those situations by expecting them to come into reality. I've known several different people like this in my life. If you take a step back, you'll realize the same thing with certain people. You see, the negative, dense emotions that we can find in this world, if we over-attach to them, meaning we become too used to them in general, they become too much of a part of our mind, we are doomed to recreate them. We are doomed to find them so normal and familiar that they continue to be a part of our life. Now, how is that, you might say? Like, what do you mean I'm bringing about this negativity into my life? How can you tell me that? Well, you must take a look at what you believe to be true about yourself and the world. And that's a deep down process, right? That's not surface level. What do I think about myself? No, this means taking the time to put space in between you and your thoughts. Meaning on a day to day basis, or at least a consistent basis, when you get a thought, journal about, meditate, reflect on why that thought came, why that thought originated from your brain based on everything that you're going through. And as you develop that space and as you put more time into understanding your why, behind why you might have thought something, you develop what they call mindfulness. You develop the space in between by which you get to choose how you react. You'll notice if you do this long enough, you then have emotional control. You have control over the way you think and the way you react to your outside world. And when you have this, you can create your reality. You can choose things differently. You can make things different in your life. You can make better decisions. But so many of us get into this space where we're not mindful. We don't even know what mindfulness is. We might say we do, but do we believe that we're mindful? Do we understand what mindfulness is on a personal, experiential level? Many of us don't. It doesn't help that our society thrives upon people who lose the sense of mindfulness in effect of consumeristic consumption or over consumeristic want of things of the outside world that don't truly benefit us. You see, when you over attach to those negative emotions, they feel so negative, they hold you down so much, they hold your soul to the earth in such a grave way that the only thing that feels right is to go chasing some form of avoidance, some form of sustenance or substance or substance sustenance that keeps you okay, that makes you feel okay, that brings you some sort of feeling of lightness, right? So you have extreme anxiety when you don't drink. That's something that I've dealt with in the past. Um, if you continue down that road of being a massive alcoholic, those problems will only get bigger. You'll be even more of an alcoholic, and your anxiety will be worse and worse when you're not an alcoholic. So these are two very dense state of beings, anxiety and um, being an alcoholic. Things that, when I say dense, I mean states of being that hold you to the physical world, states of being that limit your soul's capacity, limit your soul's interpretation, they limit your soul's appreciation, because ultimately you are focusing on the physical. And the physical is everything outside of us. If we are our soul, we're getting deep today, gal. If we are our soul and our awareness, we're not our thoughts, we're not our actions, we're not our beliefs. We are our soul. We are the awareness behind all of that. Then when we become overly attached to the physical in the form of a negative emotion, a negative habit, or anything of the such, we are limiting our soul's progression. We are limiting what our soul interacts with. We are limiting how our soul becomes, what our soul becomes. Because if you take on the belief that we reincarnate, let's say, and that your soul's been here for hundreds of years, let's say, or maybe you're a newer soul. If you take on that belief, then you start to think about, well, damn, if I'm just going to reincarnate into something after this life, what am I here for? You see, I dealt with this kind of idea very early on. I didn't put all the dots together, but in my mind, I thought of, what's the point of all this? What's the point of all this? This materialism, consumerism, what is the point? This was a thought when I was very young. And so in my process, it's about finding me. It's been about finding meaning, finding who I'm meant to be, because everything was so pointless before. A grave sadness comes from the lack of meaning. So in that process, I've developed a sense of meaning, a sense of my soul's progression. I've gotten out of my own way, and now I'm following down the path that my soul leads me, that the universe works with my soul and God and the universe to work through me and allow me to produce goodness on the outside, meaning putting goodness back into others' lives. Because I've also taken on the belief, that makes a lot of sense to me, that the whole basis of understanding of spirituality is how can we help other humans? How can we help other people? How can we make the world a better place? Because if we're all connected through souls and spirituality, through the human body, should I say, within the human body, wouldn't it be perfect sense that our entire goal here is just to make it better for other humans in general, in some way, shape, or form? Not worse? And then that comes the understanding that that's working with God, whereas working with the devil is making things worse for humans in general. If you take on the belief that being dense or being an alcoholic is very dense and it's an extreme tie to the physical world and it limits your soul's progression, then it's easy to understand why working with the devil is evil. Why working with the devil will always limit our souls. Why working with the devil harms all of humanity, whereas working with God helps all of humanity. If you become a anti-alcoholic activist and you fight to help people break their addictions, you're making the world a better place in that you're helping people find their soul more so. You're helping people find their soul. You're helping people break their addiction so they can really be who they're meant to be, so they can get out of their own way. Is that worthy of your energy? Is that worthy of your capacity and commitment? Or is another round at the bar better? Is another night out with your friends better? Is another TV show better? Develop the space, guys. You're not just developing the space to feel better. You're developing the space so you can be all that you're meant to be. So you can let your soul progress in the way that it's meant to progress. That you can allow your soul to put its effect on the world that it was called to do so. That's where true bliss comes from. Satisfaction. Real understanding of the world. Making great change. Don't work with the devil, guys. Work with God. Work with the universe. Work with the positivity of humanity. And if you're against all that just because it sounds like too much to bear, yeah, that shows you of your maturity. You think it was easy for me to accept the responsibility of spirituality at a young age? No. But it was a whole lot harder for me to continue to avoid it. I love you guys. We got really deep today. Let me know what you think below. Have an amazing day.